All right, let's do
What
it.
up, friends, stokers, fellow check practitioners, whatever you want to call yourselves, whatever you self-identify as. This is a mutual podcast between myself and Matt Grebosky, good friend of mine, chatting about a recent clip that he posted on his Instagram from Joe Rogan, talking a little bit about lifestyle and getting yourself off of the couch and not being such a fucking lazy human being, as I think we both experience a lot of people to be. And I'm sure we've probably experienced ourselves to be in the past. And that sparked a rich discussion between Matt and I around masculinity and also in terms of behavior change and what motivates that. So we took this opportunity to sit down and chat a little bit about our differing opinions on this and our mutual opinions on it. And because I think it has such relevance to all factors of lifestyle, and I think we live in a world where men are very confused on how to show up fully as themselves, couldn't think of a better podcast, couldn't think of a better discussion to have than with my boy Matt. So here we are. Welcome, brother.
Yeah, dude, excited to be here, and I just love having these nuanced and deep conversations. And it's funny. Like, not every day do you get someone who leaves a negative comment on your Instagram, and then a full conversation comes out of it. Right? Like, this is what I want to do. And like, when people disagree, like, because everything you say is going to be controversial to some degree if you're speaking your truth. And thank you for leaving the comment. The comment wasn't anything wild. You just said, I disagree. And then I messaged you personally, and you were like, let's just talk about this. So to give a little bit of frame of reference, I posted about 3 minutes of a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience, a conversation between Joe Rogan and Dan Crenshaw, who is a congressman from, I believe, outside Houston, Texas. The clip essentially started off by talking about individuals wanting rewards that they aren't necessarily due for. Rather, rewarding people for mediocre results or effort, in instance of specifically what they said: obese models, participation trophies, and rewarding victimhood status. It then went on to talk about how Joe kind of said, yeah, it's okay to fail, and because we've all been there, suffering is inevitable. We're all going to feel down in the dumps and miserable at sometimes. But what's important is that we practice objectivity in that phase, and we take on obstacles. We understand that we can be better than where we are at right now. And we all have this little voice in our says, do better, right? Listen to that voice, get uncomfortable, find what you have good and valuable in your life, and strive to be more, to discipline yourself in the grind. And then Zavi disagreed on that. And here we are having this awesome conversation. So we're going to talk about that kind of more so from the masculinity side, I believe, because it's two things that we've had a lot of experience as males in this world. And we both had our own struggles with it. And hopefully you guys will get some insights for this. Me and Zavi, we'll definitely agree on a lot of things, and hopefully we disagree a little bit and, become smarter and healthier and happier ourselves, but help you do that at the same time.
Love it, dude. Beautifully said. Since I have my AirPods in, I cannot play the clip off of my computer so that we can all watch it back. But Matt, do you mind if I read what your comment, or at least your rendition of it was?
Like the caption of it?
The caption, so everybody's familiar with what we're talking about.
Happy.
So, Matt titled the post, "Why You Must Push Yourself." And his caption was, "I'm sorry, but you're not perfect the way you are. You know that you're not perfect. Every day, the vast majority of us live with resentment, shame, and guilt about even the littlest things in our life. Because we know we can be so much more than we are now. You're not great. Be better. Do what you know you should do to benefit yourself and others in the long term. Yes, I'm all about positivity, not being down on yourself, accepting you as who you are. But at a certain point, you have to take some personal responsibility, put in the fucking work to be happy, healthy, and successful. Life is uncomfortable. Get used to it. Expand your ability to face the dragons in your life, dive deep and do the work." And of course, referencing the Joe Rogan Experience 1630 with Dan Crenshaw, who's a badass. I like Dan Crenshaw.
Yeah, I know. He's a cool guy.
He's cool. So that is the caption that I wrote. The exact words I'll specifically say Organic Health Movement commented and said, "Disagree entirely, brother. Heart." So that's where the discussion began. Um, Matt, I'll invite you to clarify your stance on the issue. I'll reiterate back to you what you heard, what I heard from you, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So you want me to clarify essentially what I meant by that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, perfect. Um, hmm. It is in my experience, personally, as a health practitioner dealing with mostly men and women, and also in the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years of my life, making one of my main goals to understand personal development, happiness, health, and how that applies to the vast majority of people. And most recently, I've come to kind of focus more so on young men. And I think, unfortunately, in my own opinion, Western society is coddling young men into not embracing what masculinity really means, distorting what divine masculinity really is, standing up for your values, standing up for what you hold true, standing up for injustices in the world and speaking your truth, taking personal responsibility, accepting that life is hard, that inevitably there are unjust people that will take malevolence in life, do pain on you. People will die in your life. You'll lose jobs. You'll have injuries. But it's up to everyone, not only just males, but to say, I am better than this. I know, because deep down we all know that we're better than this. And to develop the skills, the strengths, work on your weaknesses in whatever physical, mental, emotional regard that is, to be better, to aim at something that you find valuable in life, and to keep progressing and to do uncomfortable things. Hopefully that was a good job.
That was a good job. I love from you. So what I heard you say is that we live in a society that coddles young men uh, in such a way that they are complacent. They don't take personal responsibility. There's not a whole lot of focus on progression and growing. And you mentioned that in terms of your practice, your goal is to help young men realize a more full expression of divine masculinity, as you just described.
Correct.
Is that a good synopsis?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. What did I miss? Because I think it's important that we're super clear on that.
I don't think you missed much. I think that that's a good working definition, that we can have tangent conversations. And if I feel like maybe you misrepresented me, no hard feelings, and we can dive into it.
Awesome. Cool. So thank you. Appreciate that. Um, my experience of men in our society is that there is a tremendous lack of proper nurturing and care that creates the complacency, the neglect, the denial, and the fear of showing up fully as a man, which, in my opinion, to define that, is a blend of emotional integration, brutal honesty with self and other, extreme ownership of one's experience, and the more traditionally recognized roles of a man, which are to be a provider, a protector, a driving force, a forward moving force, and a leader in the home, in the community, um, and let's just say in the world. So the world at large, a bigger picture. So
Hmm.
home, community, and then as we influence the bigger picture. So the totality um, of our tribe.
Beautifully said.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Hmm.
Um, that is my working definition for
Okay. So where does this leave us?
it. This is great. Uh, here is, I will explain the reason I said completely disagree now, just to clarify where my head and heart was at the moment. Um, I feel in my own self perception that I have been on both sides of the aisle as a young man trying to figure out the best approach to show up fully in my life. I have approached my own complacency, uh, laziness, frustration, um, lack of ownership in my life from both the get up off your ass, stop being a bitch, get it together, and do something about it mentality, as well as the let me get curious, let me start to nurture and explore that complacency, the emotions underlying it, and let me see if I can create a more integrated approach to going out and doing these things in the world that I know I'm meant to do.
Hmm.
My experience of the I'll just call it kind of the Austin, Texas, Joe Rogan obsessed, uh, Kyle Kingsbury fanboy, like just like fuck yeah, on it, let's go kettlebells,
Okay.
let's rock it.
Got you.
Culture um, is that there's a tremendous focus on just getting out there and pushing past a lot of these frustrations in life. And I'll personally kind of call out the plant medicine community in this way too. It's like, cool, I'm going to Peru, I'm doing ayahuasca, I'm coming back, I'm gonna fix my shit and then move on past it, right?
Hmm.
My experience of that attempt and that approach to life is that it leaves these more feminine parts feeling super neglected. And when that neglect happens, you see men who are quote unquote from the outside in very strong. But if you were to ask them to sit in the heat of their most repressed emotions for more than 10 minutes, they'd probably lose their mind.
Yeah.
So, my experience is there's neglect of the feminine, there's neglect of the nurturing. And I can get into kind of why motherhood nowadays is pretty incongruent with what I think true motherhood should be.
Yeah. And fatherhood.
How math and fatherhood, exactly,
Yeah.
terrible role models in fathership,
Yeah.
right?
That's something I would love to dive into because I just listened to something about it. But go ahead. I don't want to interrupt your flow.
Please, awesome. No, I'm kind of wrapping it up, and I would love to do that too. Um, what I have experienced personally is that until I dealt with the fear, the shame, the guilt, the frustration, as you mentioned, from a nurturing and compassionate perspective, the follow through and delivery of the cool, stoic, get after it, you're tired, fuck you, keep going, go swing that bell, go get that workout in, even if you're fucking exhausted. The show up, show up, show up, show up mentality could not actually find sustainable ground.
Okay.
AKA, you need both.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of men hear Joe Rogan on that podcast and go, well, fuck all the bullshit I've been feeling. I'm just going to go do shit. And then 2, 3 years down the line, they end up more emotionally dysfunctional, yet quote unquote more put together or more accomplished, we could say, right?
Yeah.
So I think teaching men to find the balance between those two, do both, have moments in either, have a foot in either puddle per se, or either camp, is what I've personally experienced to be the best way to go about becoming a man in my definition. And if I were to attempt to live out your definition, would be also my way of going about it, if that makes sense.
Makes a ton of sense. And I think this is the reason why we needed to have this conversation because I couldn't agree more. Um, okay, a few points. I want to talk about fatherhood. I want to talk about masculinity, and my main point, the one I'm trying to backtrack the whole way back to my first initial thought, was the dichotomy you had between kind of go 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 personal responsibility, get after it, face the dragons, and like reflect, nurture, look at our emotions, that kind of stuff. Now, I think we'd both agree with this. I don't view those. I view those as the goal, right? I
Mm,
like, so I don't like, I and hope you're right. Like maybe my Instagram caption didn't necessarily, um as a standalone post, didn't do the best job at explaining that, because I think that that's the more important work, and that's the fucking dragon you need to face. Is like, what are you escaping? Like, and I could not live a life more against go 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 go. Like, I have my dragons and my uncomfortable situations that I get in is I like resting too much. I like sleeping, just taking time to sleep. I will never stay up too late to work. It's just not in me. I get down on myself for not putting in the work when I should have earlier in the day when my body wants to do that stuff. So that's my own personal riff on that. Um, and I agree with you. Like, I've just come to the realization that, like, if I don't feel like working out, I don't need to work out. And I think that that's what me and you would agree, as far as like finding that balance between go, go, go. I more so think that the, as far as like I keep using the term facing your dragons, and essentially the term is like, it's this story that all of us understand of, like, the warrior picking up his shield, the dragons guarding, the princess or the pot of gold, and we know that the dragon's scary. It is chaos. It is this potential circumstance that is scary. It's uncomfortable, but all the success lies behind that. That could be doing 75 hard and taking care of your mind, your body, and your spirit. That could also be doing less in life and slowing down and taking time to just sit and be still, right? If that's what scares you and you know that you should do that, hey, like, I probably should do that, but I don't want to because I have all these other things I have to prioritize. Like, maybe you should consider that as something that is valuable to you in your unique and individual situation. And I think that I don't like this unidimensional, and I'm not saying you think this at all. I don't like this unidimensional term of masculinity where it's all on one side of the spectrum. I couldn't disagree more. You want to be the integrated masculine that is so in touch with the femininity, because that's where all the disruption in divine masculinity comes from, is bad relationships. I mean, because in essence, males are made to be counterparts with females, right? Like, whether that's our mom in our lives, whether that's girlfriends, and the animosity between sexes as you're growing up as a teenage boy and a young boy and dating and doing your best to shoot your shot when you're in the dating realm of trying to find women and then getting shut down, and okay, well, I got to play this game right, I can't come off too strong, and figuring out how your individual introversion extroversion plays off in that dance. um, I think it's more so what I meant by that post, and I'll wrap up here in a second. Is we all have this kind of being, like the devil and the angel sitting on our shoulders, saying, "Hey, Matt, like, you probably should get some sleep today and go do this and this and this." And then the devil's like, "No, like, just sit here and do nothing. Like, it would be really nice to have that ice cream night right now." And it's like I'm saying, listen to that angel, right? It's okay to listen to the devil every once in a while, and you're never going to be perfect. But if you listen to the angel 20% of the time right now, and you want to be better, and you know that you probably should, let's just focus on doing 25% tomorrow, and then let's get to 30%.
mm,
If that
mm.
makes sense.
Dude, makes tremendous sense, and I couldn't agree more with this this integration of like what you said. I think around the problems with masculinity being driven by the, um, I think the word wasn't. Wasn't unilateral. Remind me of the word that you
Unidimensional.
used. Yeah, unidimensional approach to masculinity is what causes issues with relationships,
Hmm.
which is what causes fathers to leave the home, right? Which is what causes them to abuse drugs and alcohol, or be abusive towards their wife, or start sleeping around, right? So start
Yeah.
cheating on their wife or start cheating on their partner. Um, a lot of the problems that we have with masculinity, I think, is from that unidimensional approach. And I think this is a good time to talk about fatherhood, because I
Mm.
think a lot of it comes from the demonstration of what men in the past 2, 3 generations have been like, what my grandfather was like as a
Hmm.
man, which is not something I want to emulate at all. My experience of him, he was morbidly obese, he was racist, he was an alcoholic, he cheated on my grandmother, he left his family. All these things that a man should not be as the result of emotional repression, his inability to deal with his father's shit, right? And his relationship to his father. So before I go any further with that, just using that as my archetype of what I don't want to be, I'd love to hear your thoughts on fatherhood and what that means to you in the context of this conversation.
Yeah, dude. Okay, so my own personal experience, as far as I was never very close with my grandfathers. My mom was very close with her dad, and he died when I was decently young. I didn't have a ton of experience with him, but as far as like my father in my life, um, yeah, I went through a pretty decently rough divorce with my mom when I was like, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, somewhere around that age. Uh, I mean, obviously it affected me a lot, but it wasn't anything, no physical abuse, but a lot of chaos in the world growing up. And he's never really, I'm not that close with him. And it's not that I don't love him. And it's not that I don't try to be a better son. And I was very open with him like a year ago and got really emotional. And I sent him a very strongly worded text of like, you weren't there for me. And I'm pissed off about that. And I will say he has done a tremendously better job. I'm still not very emotionally connected with him, but that's okay. Maybe it will come later in life. Hopefully it comes later in life. But I can see how not having a huge role model growing up, a figure, because I think about this when I see my friends still to this day, like be very friendly with their dad, like very, very friendly with their dad, like they're really good best friends. And I'm like, fuck, like what would my life been like if I had that relationship? I don't know. Could have been better. Maybe it would have been worse. I don't know. I can only take action right now and be better with it. But besides the point, I was listening to Jordan Peterson talk with, oh, I just deleted it. I would have it up. A guy who wrote the book called The Boy Crisis, who was a very big feminist early on, didn't really like how the feminist groups were only focusing on women because he was focusing on the kids. He was like, okay, what's best for kids? And if you're looking out for what's best for kids, we kind of got to figure out what's best for the parents. And you can't just focus on women in that situation. You kind of got to help the dad out too, because all of these awful things, these statistics, over 70 different things that kids, especially young boys, are better off when the father is equally represented or more than equal in the parental like life growing up. So I just want to read a few of these things I took some notes on because it was wild. Okay, so children who have equal or more than equal involvement of the father have better postponed gratification, which is very important for happiness and success, having purpose and motivation and employment in life. Far less likely to be depressed, less likely to be aggressive, and therefore to have better assertion in situations, which is a positive thing to have. More likely to be empathetic, less likely to drop out of school, less likely to be depressed and withdrawn during a relationship or a breakup, less likely to be addicted to video games, less likely to be addicted to video porn, which is fucking all over the place right now. That's another topic. Um, Less likely to have poor social skills and emotional skills, less likely to do poorly in school, especially regarding reading and writing, which are the two most important subjects for prediction of success in life. Higher sperm count in young boys or growing up men, rather. more likely to have longer telomeres, which is telomeres are essentially like how long the tips of your chromosomes, which determine how long you're going to live. So like even young boys, especially it affected even young boys and girls. When the father wasn't present, their telomeres were shorter, but boys were 40% shorter than the females in that same group. Father involvement is especially a really good predictor of success, more so than income, socioeconomic status, school quality, or neighborhood quality. Yeah, so fathers are really important. It's not to say mothers aren't important, but um, the father seems to play a really big role in the development of boys and girls as they grow up in society. So I'll leave you with that, Zavin. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you for the stats because I couldn't agree more myself, right? So, what I find to be first, we have the presence of the father in the home, which is super important, right? The actual amount of time that a child spends learning, growing, and intuiting from an emotional sense what the father does to approach life and his coping mechanisms, his tools for success, his ways of conduct. That couldn't be more important. Um, I see this in my own family as a almost like as an ironic and profoundly obvious trait, that the dysfunction of the father passes on to the boy, the son. Uh, and I heard this really beautiful quote from Terry Rolls, I believe his name is, or it could be the last name eludes me. He was on Peter Attia's podcast talking primarily about his work as a psychologist and his abusive father. And one of the quotes that he laid down was really, really beautiful, in terms of, generational trauma passes from one child to the next like a forest fire, um, until the soul who is brave enough to turn and faces the flames does so, right? So, Matt, I see you and I as two who are willing to face the flames,
Hmm.
right? Um, the irony of that allegory is also that the father is the one who teaches us how to traverse the path, which is challenging. So the way that you know how to move through the forest is not only guided by the father, but whether or not you're willing to face the flames is also how willing you are to stop in your tracks and accept the dysfunction, see what's present in you, and then move forward from it. And my personal experience of having done that with some of the traits I see in the men in my family, particularly around addiction and particularly around emotional self regulation, is that I come from a background of poor emotional self regulation, which is probably why I'm so adamant that men who want to step into a more empowered role take the time to address the emotional dysfunction and not skip over it. Because, like you said, I think you have to have both. But I don't think men have a code of ethics, nor do young boys have a language or a vocabulary to address. I feel hurt. I feel misunderstood. I feel undervalued. And as a result of that, we have a lot of men who are emotionally absent, but perform the functions of a father or
Mm.
perform the functions of a provider or a boyfriend. Now, I want to bring this into the conversation too, because I think this is fascinating. You and I both have girlfriends who are very strong willed, very put together, and are very aligned and understand who they are, right? Who are firm. And I think for most men, that is a challenge,
Hmm.
right? Because of the lack of emotional regulation. I'm sure at times, at least I'll speak for myself. I
Yeah.
definitely at times feel that I am more emotional than Liz in particular circumstances. That I am more expressive of my feelings at times. I don't think that makes me a pussy, and I don't think that makes me any less of a man. But I do stand by one thing, which is rather than repressing something in the name of being stoic, like I'm reading Marcus Aurelius right now. I'm familiar with that stoic disposition of mine.
Meditations.
Meditations, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Rather than choosing to shut that down and say, "Oh, I'm a man. I shouldn't be feeling this." I think it takes more courage,
Hmm.
quality of a man. I think it takes more skill, quality of a man, and I think it takes more leadership, quality of a man, not always, not exclusively, but what I think of when I think of a man, to say, hey, this is what this very innocent part of me thinks and feels. I need you to participate in our relationship in this way. Right. And I think the background of what I'm saying is that all the men before me took that out in terms of addiction, alcoholism, drug abuse, anger, rage, violence. And I'm saying that the true man, in my definition, is one who can say, yeah, that hurt my feelings, doesn't make me a bitch. What makes me courageous and willing to stand up for myself is that I'm going to say that, own that shit because it's mine to deal with, and peace from the conversation, having asked for a need to be fulfilled and having owned my responsibility.
I couldn't agree more. I want let's first talk about my experience with the relationship and how our experiences parallel with that, and then I want to
Right.
talk about a little bit about how I think that comes from fatherhood. So first off,
Mm-hmm.
both of our girlfriends partners are very masculine in their
Mm-hmm.
own divine feminine realms, which is
Right.
awesome. I love both of
Right.
them for that,
Mm-hmm.
and I am definitely probably a little bit more in tune with my feminine than Shannon is. And I often see myself being that same kind of facilitator of the conversation. Uh, and this was a rule that I read in Jordan Peterson's recent book of like, I think the rule was don't hide unwanted things in the fog, saying like, communicate what, if something bothers you and it's something that comes up often, communicate it effectively, say why you're unhappy, be honest, say what you want, and listen to what they need because it's a negotiation. And I love this term
Mm-hmm.
of dealing, and this is more so with relationships, but it's relationship to anything. Our intimate relationships are just the most pronounced relationships, right? Everything is a negotiation because you're never going to, you need someone that will push you, and you need someone that is going to recognize your imbalances and say you're wrong here, you can be better, you said you were going to do that, do this. And then so that's kind of right, but more so what I meant from that is I think it's a very crucial aspect that men are able to sit down and be okay with their feelings and express that. And this is my second point that I wanted to bring up was I think that that's like one of the main roles of the father or a fatherly figure in a especially a young boy's life is to say, and this is where like it shows true masculinity is like, hey, it's okay. Like let's talk about this. And to see a father figure as someone who's courageous, strong, confident, a leader who also will take the time to have those feelings and to be okay and nurture them and to be quiet with them and be still and then show the young boy that this is okay and this is how we actually become stronger and embrace this more masculine world realm is by knowing ourselves better and embracing that feminine side of sitting with it and nurturing and using that energy that we cultivate to transform our life for whatever ways we deem necessary.
I think that's beautifully put, man. Um, I love what you say about having somebody who challenges you too. Um, I don't think that's something that either of our girlfriends would be hesitant to do, right?
Hmm.
Because it's very much like, at least in the way that I experience both of them, what's so ironic is that sometimes I struggle to be more to the point than Liz is. And that's something where, like you said, I think we're also facilitators of the like, cool, where you at? Let's suss this out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think to play the devil's advocate, which really at this point we're not arguing sides anymore because we're agreeing on this whole picture. But to let's just say that challenging archetype or the confrontive and combative archetype, I think that's necessary too,
Hmm.
right? Because complacency does need a kick in the ass to get going sometimes. I can say that when I went really started my health journey from transforming my body and my mind had a personal development piece in place, but the body was lacking behind. I did not like to do my yoga practice. It wasn't enjoyable, but I made myself do it because I was like, well, fuck, I'm not doing anything else with my life right now. I got to do it, right? And when I started doing a yoga class, a kettlebell class, and a run on some days, like I hate this, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? You have to, just like you start unclogging a pipe, you have to get in there and just start fucking grinding. And I
Yeah.
think the role of fatherhood is that a true man, when confronted by his wife or his partner, and she says, you are slacking in this category, doesn't use it as an opportunity to argue, but listens, right? So Liz told me the other day, I expressed a need to her. She was like, okay, cool. I said, what do you need from me? Right? So what do you need me to step up in, and what haven't I been doing? Two things came up which I thought were beautiful and really showed me some of my shit. A was that I haven't been focusing enough on what she's doing well in my communication. And I also haven't been, and this is kind of just more of a silly thing, I haven't been as nice to people at CrossFit as I normally am in social situations. So I have two opportunities. A, I celebrate her more and I say, you're doing a fucking beautiful job of XYZ. And I want to go to CrossFit. I fucking high five people like I did at the end of the workout yesterday. For me, it's not an opportunity to go, well, oh, she's questioning my masculinity, which I think is what the broken version does. And now she's telling me I'm wrong. So I need to be, which an element of me, dude, don't get me wrong, is still there.
Yeah.
But with that said, I also know there's a part of me that needs a kick in the ass to actually make a change about those things. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, either I do it immediately or I'm not going to do it. So I think the balance in the man too is to be able to get his ass kicked and to not go like whimpering afterwards. If you do feel some wimpishness, acknowledge it. But I think it's also important to get your ass kicked once in a while by your significant other, for sure.
100%. Holy crap. I have so many things I want to touch on. First thing, I just want to say something that you were kind of talking about your experience, and something I'll bring up that I think is one of the more profound things, especially my relationship with Shannon, that I have found. I can't remember where the hell I read this. I think it was in Don Miguel. It was in Don Miguel Ruiz's like 7 Things of a Healthy Relationship. Great book for anyone who's in relationships. Everybody's in a relationship. Was like, sometimes your partner just wants you to listen, and like literally, like I literally like sometimes I find myself escaping to something. I'm like, holy crap, like Shannon's literally not complaining to me, but she just wants someone to listen to her for 5 minutes. And I can sense her tone and when she wants me to do that, and I'm like, okay, I can just sit down and just listen to her for 5 minutes. It will be okay. And that's all they want sometimes, and it means the world to them. And the thing is, I remember Paul Chek made a joke about this when I was on my HLC too. Is when someone made a joke about themselves, and he was like, "Those jokes you make are more important than you think." Because Shannon makes jokes sometimes about how I never listen to her, kind of like a joke, but like you never fucking listen to me, that kind of thing. That's really what she's thinking. Like she wants me to listen to more, and that's her subconscious trying to play that out to me without being rude, in a sense, and trying to be joking about it. So listen more, guys and women. So that's the first thing. Fuck. I don't even know where I wanted to go with that. Yeah. And also about the CrossFit thing, side note, dude, I like, that was one thing. And I still do it in hockey today, is like being a good sport and high-fiving everyone after the game. It's a good job. Right. And I don't know, I'm kind of getting off subject, but if you play on a team, be a good teammate over anything. I think that's so important. And it's with CrossFit too. Like that's the one thing I loved about CrossFit. Why I've like, don't get me wrong, you can nitpick CrossFit so much, but the reason why people enjoy it, I truly think the reason why people enjoy it is because everyone's showing up to face that dragon together. And very rarely does someone quit. Right? There's different ways you can scale it. And we had our conversations about exercise selection the other day and ending a workout on like a 90% snatch after you ran 400 meters and did some single unders. Like just do that first. But like, it's the camaraderie of like, they're going to stay around and cheer me on. Like these people I don't even know are cheering me on to like push fucking past my limits. And that's one thing
Mhm.
of that community that I think is so important, that is lacking, especially Zabi. I'll bring it around to the subject of like lacking in male. And this is one thing like I truly want to do is like open up space for guys to like meet friends online that will talk about this and can be open and talk about their feelings and what they're escaping. And dude, I watch porn 3 times a day. I can't stop. I tell myself I want to stop. I can't. And I can't find women. All women hate me. And just very specific things. And I've dealt with both of those things. And I think we just need more community around that. And we need to, as guys, also be there to listen to guys who want to also speak about that stuff.
100%. I love it. Um, it's funny. This brought up for me when I was playing travel ball. I think it was 13.
Basketball.
Um, baseball.
Okay.
There's a kid on my team um, who was always just really gifted and talented, and I was struggling a bit at the time. And I was like, dude, like, what do you think it takes to get seen by the coaches to really be a starter? Because there are a couple levels within the travel ball team that we had. I don't really want to be on like the best level. They played the most, more likely to get scouted, etc. And he said something to me that was just very, very, very masculine. And at the time, I was like, what the fuck? He was like, well, I don't want to be a dick, but keep your head down, speak when spoken to, and show the fuck up. And I was like, oh God, like, it sounds awful. The irony is that he's now a professional baseball player. There is merit to that approach. I need more of it in my life. I know that's one of the edges that I'm working towards, is to not have to delve into every emotion, not have to consider and reflect on everything. Just fucking do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I think, if you probably sat him down and were like, dude, how you doing? I think it'd be an element of like, oh shit, well, yeah, I'm a professional baseball player now, but there's a lot of emotional baggage I haven't addressed, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I love what you're saying about creating the two, and I love what you're saying when it comes to being a good sport too, because I think one of the biggest things for childish men is that everything needs to be a competition. I'm guilty of it. Like I want to be the best, obviously, right? But not everything is a competition. Oftentimes, it's a team effort, right?
Yeah.
So at least within Pillars of Growth, the community we're in, right? It's a fucking group effort to get better. We're all
Yes.
individually there to grow our businesses, but our progress doesn't exist without the group calls. Our progress doesn't exist without the relationships and the retreats, right? So that community and the ego that goes along with it, right? How many followers do I have by comparison to so and so? Are my reels performing? Am I landing clients who signed a bigger deal this week?
Mm-hmm.
It's a component of it and it makes us better. But if we lose sight of the community aspect, which is the feminine, which is the tribe, which is the nurturing, which is the
Yeah.
I have your back, you have mine, I'm here to support you, then it's all hope is lost. And you need both.
Yeah. Um, you brought up this example. I think this ties in so well. So I play on a men's league team, and I am my role, I've come to realize as a hockey player, is to be a good teammate, to cheer people up, to skate as hard as I possibly can. If you're familiar with what back checking is, I am the hardest back checker ever. I play defense and I back check harder than anyone, and I catch people when they're breakaways. That's my role as a player because it's something I can control. I'm not great at scoring goals, but I will work harder than most people out there. Um, and then we have one kid on our team who's very gifted at scoring goals. He doesn't skate hard. He never back checks, and he's a very arrogant player. I like him. He's a cool guy, but he acts like a child. And we have one player on our team who is not so great, who first off has made so much progress this season. It's amazing. It's actually incredible. But player A, who is very good, was openly talk shit on player B while we're on the same team, while we're playing ice hockey, which is so childish. And I despise it because it ruins the team, because other people listen and don't speak up and they're like, the fuck? Like, why did he just say that? He's literally right there. He can hear him. And he was complaining, player A was complaining about player B while we're all getting ready because player B wasn't there. He would have never said it if player B was there. And I literally said, dude, stop complaining. Tell him what to do. You both play the same position. I was like, we're only going to be as good as if he is. So why don't you teach him how to be better? Right? Like he's trying. He's not showing up here and like at 10 o'clock at night, not trying to be better. And you can see how emotional I get about this because player A, I don't want to use their names. Player A is immature. He's making fun of him for some of his own insecurities that he's dealing with because he knows he's good. The guy I'm talking about scores most of our goals. He's really good. I'm glad he's on our team. But like, I'm like, just like, dude, like, be a teammate. Like, why are you trying to make his life worse? Right? Like, we all want to win. Our team wins very often. And it's like, dude, just coach him. And as I say, hey, dude, I said, hey, Dion, like, listen, on that last play, if he's coming down like this, pinch, go right at him because otherwise that's going to happen again. Right? And on this next play, all right, dude, hey, and then it's like that good, bad, good sandwich. I'm like, dude, awesome shot there. Like, that's what you need to do, right? Like, quick decision, shoot the puck. But like here, like, just pick your head up a little bit. You had time, right? And I'm not to get down on this subject, but like, help people out when you have the ability to. And even if that's a stranger, even if that's your friend, even if that's God, like anyone at work, if you have the ability to be there and help them out business wise, professionally, if you can just help him out by listening, by supporting him and just saying, hey, dude, thank you for telling me that. Like, I can understand you really care about this subject. Like, thanks for sharing that with me. And just being like, just being honest with the person. And there's so many aspects of that. But what are your thoughts on that, Zavi?
I love it, and I think it highlights an aspect of me that I would like to work on the most, which is the tendency to be critical and judgmental of other people in order to appear funny, right?
Yeah.
To land jokes, which look, I get a rise out of people because from an emotional perspective, I can intuit a lot of the things that probably go on in people's heads, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, because I see them in me. And I often like to poke fun and tease other people for that. But what I'm learning is that, especially when those people are close to you, like I was an asshole to my best friend growing up. And that's a wound that I still carry of feeling like shit about that. Right. Because my brother was an asshole to me. So I was like, okay, cool. This is the behavioral model we're working with.
Yeah.
Right. So okay, cool. I guess this is the way to go about it. And one of the things that I noticed is like there are a few options that you can take with making everybody better. But one thing that I'm challenging myself to do is, hey, when you see a part of you that's represented by somebody else, whether you were it in the past or you are now, instead of trying to score brownie points as being funny and joking about that person, sit the fuck back, humble yourself, and have real discussions. So I could have easily seen your post and been like, fucking mad, dude. I don't know what he thinks he's doing with this whole masculine thing. But I was like, you know what? Fucking say you disagree and then have a discussion about it. You know what I mean? Like that's the difference here. We all judge each other. We all judge the fuck out of each other all the time, subconsciously or consciously, right? Life is a competition. It's survival of the fittest. But at the same time, as we move towards more unity,
Mm-hmm.
you have to show up and you have to consider the fact that as you grow, you're also going to have to realize that all the shit you see in other people is your own. And I think that's the extreme ownership of masculinity. Like I walked upstairs to Liz yesterday. I was like, you know what? For all the fun that I poke at people in our lives, for the love of God, I can be such an asshole sometimes. And she was like, well, yeah, but you have to take your aggression out somehow. I was like, no, I don't. I don't need to poke fun and make fun of other people where I see my own self represented in it. I don't. Because I'm just taking my shit and airing it, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest edges that I have to work on as a wound left over from being bullied as a kid,
Yeah.
right? You either join them or you don't, or you shut down. And at least in my heart, it feels a hell of a lot better to be the ceaselessly supportive one, not the like 95%, I got you 100%. And then 5% is like, yeah, we're going to make fun of you behind your back. Like I own that behavior and that tendency in me, which is childish, right? It's okay to be childlike and have moments of levity, But I think the step in the best direction and what I'm challenging myself, towards is to fucking own my own bullshit 100% of the time.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think about if I if I do that, if I make fun of people, obviously if I can't think about it that often, if I can't think about many examples, but I'm trying to think how I necessarily express that. I don't know, dude, but thank you for sharing that with me. But I think in my own journey, like that's something that sorry, I'm like switching around positions a lot, but
You're good. I'll stand.
just like I'm not comfortable. But I'm glad you're working on that because I think that a lot of people like that's like one thing that really shines lights on like shit you need to work on is when you're making fun of people to try and be funny, especially in social situations. Because I find that the person who's making those jokes and is to be funny in that manner, depending on the actual role, is really just making up for some sort of inadequacy in themselves, whether that's something that they know people know about or they just know about themselves. And yeah, I can just think about several people that, and that hockey player for a prime example, but just not being okay with like what they're doing with their life, so they have to make jokes about other people's lives, and just maybe like people that are not even doing anything wild. And obviously there's sometimes like jokes are okay, and that's what makes that's jokes are how and that's the thing I love about comedians is like jokes are how we deal with those uncomfortable situations, and like people like like it's okay, we can laugh about these things. And that's why people like fucking die over like PC culture jokes, because everyone's so strung up and like you have to work in this way and you can't laugh about this thing and this thing, and then you make like a racial joke and people are like, oh my god, this is so funny, right? And like it's just uh, I don't know where I'm going with this. Oh, okay, so maybe that's Joe Rogan's going on tour and it's called The Sacred Clown because I think in antiquity kings would commonly have jokers next to them or clowns, and in tribes they had someone that would sit next to them that would constantly ridicule the king or the queen to just make them humble and say you're not perfect, right? Like you're still working on yourself and you still have imbalances and weaknesses, and I'm here to remind you of that. So I don't know, I'll leave it on that.
Dude, I think I need you to be my sacred clown and give me a jab a day. Keep me on my toes, dude. Just fucking bring it.
Trying.
Because it it does bring so much humility, right? And if there's anything I think that poses a challenge to men, it's arrogance, and
Mm,
it's arrogance in the way we carry ourselves. Arrogance. To be honest, I think that the issue that Joe was referring to is also something that Gary Vee talks about, which is like you're not entitled to shit.
yes.
Is this arrogance of like, oh, well, just because I'm here, it should be so easy that it's just handed to me.
Hmm.
This comes from the perspective that I've had a lot of shit handed to me in life,
Same
shit that
here.
I didn't do anything to deserve. It's like, okay, cool, this is here, awesome, cool. Parents want to give me an Amex, fuck yeah, I'll take it. Anything, right? Um, One of the best examples of this in my life, when I got my first car, which is the car I still have, my stepdad paid for it outright, and I paid him back, right? The thing about that is like, fuck yeah, that's a great privilege. That's awesome. But who am I then to say to people, hey, by the way, like this is the way to go about being successful and getting this done, et cetera, right? So there's a certain hypocrisy that I need to own in that, right? And also a certain amount of responsibility that comes along with that position of privilege, which is I hope that at the end of the day, the efforts that I put forth on this planet as a man are to take more responsibility, humble myself, and address that source of arrogance within me that thinks I should just get things because I want them. Right? This like law of attraction bullshit that if you think it into reality, it's yours. to take that arrogance, to humble myself, to continue to be diligent and be the sustainer of my life. And then in the process, be compassionate towards the parts of myself that are growing, be compassionate to the parts of myself that are struggling, and be compassionate to the parts of myself I want to improve. And I think the integrated approach is really the only way to go about it.
Mm. And thank you for bringing that up, because I am exactly the same way. I have been so fortunate in my life to financially be very supported by my father and give me, when I was younger, essentially anything I wanted. In Not anything I wanted, but with
Right.
pretty darn. I mean, I played ice hockey all growing up, and that is a very expensive sport. Ice hockey and golf, arguably probably the two most expensive sports. Um, and you're right. Like, and I think that's maybe one reason why I focus on personal responsibility and success so much, is because I struggle with it so much, because I did not develop the discipline when I was younger to create financial stability in like growing up. Like, I almost wish that I do not want to become that like trust fund baby that had everything as a kid and then never developed hard work and financial, I don't know, resourcefulness to have success in that life. And it's something I struggle with every day. It's by far probably one of my biggest stressors is, yeah, I'd say that. Yeah. Like finances and dealing with that stuff. And again, I think it's just this balance of knowing what you need to work on in all of these wildly idiosyncratic experiences that we all have. They're different for everybody. And just figuring out, okay, that played with how I was nurtured, played with my unique genetic expression, comes to being into who I am now. And what do I want to be later in life? And what do I have to work on to get there? And just taking it step at a time. And the cool thing is that's why Zavi and I are here, because we're willing to do, we have put in the work. We have dealt with our stuff, and by no means are we perfect, but we have climbed a few mountains. We know what it's like to build a map up the mountain, to fail, to we've also done the work to study the mountain of health, of mindset, of personal responsibility, of nutrition, exercise, and all the and me and Zabi are 100% very detail oriented in the fact that we love science. We love getting to the nuance of everything, whether that's the woo woo side of spirituality, of feelings and emotions, but also the very hard science of metabolism, flexibility, posture, strength and conditioning, nutrition, all that stuff. And I think people just need mentors in life, because that is what got me started. I had a really good experience with a strength and conditioning coach, and he showed me the ropes, and he showed me, hey, this is a really good way to get strong mentally and physically, right? Because I feel like we all kind of come to this conclusion that, like, as much as we like looking good, like, man, it feels really good when you tell yourself you got to stop at rep 8 and you're going to 15, and then you get to rep 15 and you're like, holy shit, I just did that. And Zavi, I got to leave in like 10 minutes, but I just want people to invest in themselves. I want them to take responsibility. And we'll kind of get back to my post in the beginning. I just want people to listen to themselves, because we know what we should do. We all have this voice in ourselves that are like, you fucking douchebag, you said you wanted to do this. You didn't do this. And now you resent yourself for that decision. Okay, let's sit with that. Where's that resentment come from? But also take action. And you said this several times, Zavi, of like, and I just tweeted this out. I posted about it today from a tweet that I posted on my Instagram. Of like, it doesn't matter what you believe. What the only true thing that matters is what you actually do and what action you take in life, right? You can believe all this crazy stuff about nutrition, about mindset, personal responsibility, but if you're not like actually going to put it into application, then it's just words in your head, and that doesn't really matter.
That's so spot on. That is my entire experience of every certification I've ever had. I go out of it, I'm like, I know my shit. And then 3 days later, I'm like, dude, you're doing the exact opposite of what you just told everybody. Like, who the fuck are you? Like, this is hysterical. With Whole Being, we're doing Restore, which is Jator's version of like Whole 30, we could call it.
Yeah.
So you take out all the seed oils, you take out all the sugar and the gluten, etc. Yesterday, here I am, day 3, and I'm pacing back and forth in the kitchen because I can't decide whether or not I should have sourdough bread. I'm like, no, you shouldn't. Like, you tell people when you give them this recall not to do it. And day 3, I'm pacing in my kitchen like, fuck me. Alicia's like, what do you think you should do? I was like, well, clearly not. But she's like, don't fucking do it, dude. So I didn't have the sourdough bread. But
Good
the
on
whole
you.
point is, and here's my debate. It's like the more knowledge you have, the more fucked up those decisions become. It's like, well, the
Yes.
gliadin's broken down and it's a lower glycemic index, so it's not really that much weed. Like, fuck you, dude. Don't eat it. The whole journey, I think, of what you described is beautiful, man. And my hope is that people also learn to act on what they know and act on what they've learned. And it takes a long fucking time, which is why I bring that compassion piece into it too. Because you're gonna fuck up. You're gonna try a diet recall and get 10 days in and then just eat shit. You're going to go to the gym one day with a great program. You're going to get halfway through and quit on it, right? You're going to forget to drink water some days. You're going to have stress through the roof and not manage it. This is life, dude. Humaning is hard. And what's so funny, I think, is you and I, we're very intellectual. We want to hold ourselves to high standards. And because the standards are so high, I think we can also get so down on ourselves when we don't meet them and so frustrated. And I think that's the biggest journey. It's like, let's bring those two together. Let's bring that drive and that intensity back with this compassion and nurturing. Because otherwise, you're going to be really good like 10% of the time, and 90% of the time, just to be fucking down on yourself. So
Yeah.
I respect the fuck out of you for being a man who's come from a background where you felt like your father wasn't as present in certain ways of your life. To take that, want to become the opposite, show up fully for it, and fucking slay your dragons, dude. Nothing is more respectable in my book than that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
100%, dude.
Yeah, dude. And just also, like, I'm about to head to the gym and I have these 2 young clients that are like 12-year-old guys and very different kids. It's actually insane that they're the same age. But there's, one kid who just is addicted to his phone, plays video games all the time, can't have a really good conversation, especially when his mom's around. Like, he can have a good conversation with me, but when his mom's around, out of it. It's so weird. But just like teaching him, and it's just teaching him how to like have a good respect with food and how sleep affects the way you feel the next day, and why working out and doing hard things is important, and how does he, and actually reflecting on that and being okay and being able to have someone who's muscular and jacked and who can lift all these heavy weights also want to talk about like how he feels and like how his social life is. And that's what we're here for, brother. And whether you're 12 years old or whether you're 55 years old, we're here to help. And whether it's us or whether it's someone else in your life, I think guys and women, especially guys, need to learn how to just ask for help. And because there are a lot of people who just don't know you want to do the work. Because I'm not just going to go out and message all these random people what I think I should have them do. But if you reach out to me and you want to, like, hey, dude, can we talk? I'm like, sure. Like, I did that with someone who is very, very, not very, pretty darn popular, and who I just had like kind of came into contact with online. Messaged me, was like, dude, I'm really busy this week, but since you reached out to me, like, I'm going to make time for you. Like, let's hop on a call. And it was so cool and I'm like, holy crap, dude. Like, you need to talk about this more. Like, reach out, ask for help. People will be there. Zavi and I are there. And let's embrace our divine masculinity. Let's embrace our emotions and our resentments and our shames, and let's understand where they come from. Let's make a map. Let's make a program, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, to get to our goals. Let's implement it. Let's take action. And then let's reflect on it. Let's see, okay, what worked? What didn't work? How do I feel about that? How do I feel when I was doing that? How do I feel now? What do I want to change? What am I willing to sacrifice and to invest in my long-term health? And we're here for it, brother.
Here for it. That's my new favorite phrase. Here for it. Brother, thank you for your contributions and your honesty. I'm right there with you. Um, I'm so excited to see what you come up with as you continue to work with Graham and as you already have created some badass shit, content wise, program wise, for people that are coming to your sphere. Um, since we're both releasing this, let's just do a little moment to plug ourselves and let people know where we can find the other,
Yeah. Okay.
and
So
we can cap it off.
yeah. So I'll just go first. Hi, my name's Matt Grebosky. You can find me at move_with_Matt. I'm the host of the Move with Matt show. Everything I do is on Instagram, also online at mattgrebosky.com. Zavi?
Beautiful. I'm Zavi D. You can find me at organic_health_movement, which is a shitty name and needs to be changed, but that's what it is for now. You can find me at LinkedIn under Zavi Donabedian. I coach under Organic Health Movement is my one-on-one side hustle, and my mainstay is Whole Being. You can find me on Instagram, Whole Being_Zavi, Facebook, Whole Being Zavi, and you can check out our free whole community to check out some deep mental, emotional exploration. We get deep into the subconscious and behavioral change. Those are my plugs.
I love it. Yeah, dude, I'm excited for the next couple months. We'll be spending, God, probably almost like 2-3 weeks with each, probably like 3 weeks with each other coming up here soon. So that'll be nice.
That's what I'm thinking.
We have a Leaders into Legends vacation coming up, probably somewhere in North Carolina. Not vacation, a retreat. And then Zavi and I are also doing another Czech Institute Integrated Movement Science Level 3. We're flying out to New Mexico. We're going to drive to San Diego. So we're going to be stoking and having fun the entire time there. But thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.